Like, strangely, it's probably not what you think. It's really to like lead and like mentor these young men. And I mean, I'm talking about not just being fast, not being strong, but being a better man than when you walk in the door.
Welcome back to another episode of the Todd Durkin Impact Show, and buckle up the bootstraps today. You all are going to get fired up. I have the one and only Coach Bennie Wylie in the house. Bennie, how are you?
I'm doing great, brother. Hey, man, it's just so good to see you, man. So great to be on and connect, man. Every time I see you, I think about you, man. It puts a smile on my face. So just excited to be a part of it.
Now, all you're like, wait a second, I know that name. How do I know that name? Bennie Wylie, I know that name. Well, you've probably seen him roaming the sidelines as the strength and conditioning coach for the University of Oklahoma football. And they're like, wait a second, no, it's not that. It's not just the football thing, because, man, how do I forget that hulking figure roaming the sidelines? You're like, wait a second, I know the name. And then, yes, Coach Wylie and I, we share something in common. Bennie and I worked together on NBC STRONG just a few years ago, and we competed our tails off. We became best of friends and competed our tails off. And, man, we're going to talk a little bit of Strong today. We're going to talk OU football. We're going to talk life performance, and it's going to be an awesome time. Coach, have you recovered from Strong yet, by the way?
Barely, just now. That thing beat me up, man, for about 18 months. I mean, I wasn't right. So, it took a while.
If you're not sure what we're talking about, NBC Strong, it aired several years ago, and it's now on Netflix, as a matter of fact. If you have not seen it, watch it. And spoiler alert, Bennie and his awesome partner, Jill May, they squeaked out a victory against a very formidable opponent.
Very formidable, and squeaked it out is exactly right. God dang it!
Yours truly, and Brittany Miller, she was awesome, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. But check out Netflix. Go to Strong. Bennie's a man of faith. He walks his talk. He's got a very eclectic background, but as a strength and conditioning coach, he's the coach of the coaches, and he is a guy that will motivate and inspire you to all ends. So he's been at Texas Tech. He's been at Texas, University of Tennessee. He's worked with the Dallas Cowboys. He's now obviously at the University of Oklahoma. The last couple years, they had a great year this past season, went 12-2, ultimately lost to LSU in the playoffs. And again, so many great things that coach is doing. Bennie, it's awesome to have you on the show today, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Hey,
good to be here.
Before we talk Oklahoma, we got to go back to Strong. We're going to go back a few years ago.
Come on.
And 10 weeks of intense competition. We were cabin mates. So I was fortunate. There was 10 men, 10 women, and each trainer was paired up with a gal, and we happened to each get awesome gals. I had a girl named Devin Cassidy in the beginning, and then I got ousted in week 3. And I got to tell you, one of the highlights in my first few weeks was just hanging with Bennie, because, man, this brother, we would pray together, we would train together. At least I would try to train with him. The dude's a beast. But this guy, it was an awesome dude to hang out with. And I've got so many top memories of the show. And Bennie, I don't know about you, but I still hold on to many of those memories today, man.
Oh, man. I mean, that was probably the best part of the whole show was honestly getting to meet you and just to share that brotherhood, man, because you don't come across people that you let in your inner circle. And you're a lot like me, that we keep that inner circle pretty tight. And it's rare to come across somebody that you just like match up with and you have so many things in common with. I mean, you're a man of faith as well. I mean, you're like honestly one of the hardest working, biggest like entrepreneurs that I've ever been around. And just to be able to talk every night, like in the bathroom, we'd meet in the middle there in the bathroom and just talk, man, sit on the counter and just talk, pray, just
usually at like 3 in the morning.
Ice everything that we had bummed out. But I mean, that was probably like honestly the best part of the show was just being able to meet and just be able to connect with you. And then when you left on week 3, man, I mean, it was a hot tear or two, man, that just ran down my face, man. It was sad. And then to see you come back, man, was just so inspiring, to see another coach, because we take that term very seriously. I mean, coach, we inspire, we teach, we educate. And so to just have the other coach back on the show was awesome for me.
Well, I'm going to ask you one of your top memories in a minute, but one of my top memories is after I got ousted and got called back for this competition, I'm in the Elimination Tower. And again, if you have not watched it on Netflix, go check it out. Benny's on the blue team. And all of us trainers who were eliminated had to go back into this 4-story elimination tower. And I remember going through that tower, and all I could hear, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And as I'm going through the tower, all I could hear was this bellowing voice. You gotta go. You gotta go. And for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, this voice was, I could hear it now. I think I wake up sometime in the middle of the night, like, you gotta go. And that was Coach Benny down there, fired me up and allowed me to actually come back in the show and create some really, really amazing life memories. Benny, I don't know about some of your top memories, but I know that was one of mine. I can tell you that much right now.
Man, I can tell you there's so many that it's hard to pick one. But that Elimination Tower, it doesn't do like justice. If you do watch it on Netflix, it doesn't do it justice how brutal that thing was. It just beat us up to death. I would say, training with you, like in the yard, man, that great like workout facility that we had.
Yeah.
And just to be able to, like vibe and connect with another dude, and we could train and push and be ourselves with each other. So those stand out. Just the interviews in the trailer. Do you remember being in the trailer for hours at a time, and you don't know if it's 2 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and just the long interviews? There's so many memories of like so many times. And I think for me, it was more just like the camaraderie, because I'd kind of missed that. I'd been out of coaching for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to sit with you guys like in the kitchen and cook and talk and hang out. So, those were the parts that really just stood out for me.
Now, I got to tell you about one of my lowlights. One of my lowlights of the entire competition of that was in the actual finals. We made it to the finals against each other, and that was awesome because I love competing against you. We had a tug of war. And let me just share one of my most embarrassing experiences in life, folks. If you are watching this right now, if you happen to be watching and not listening, Benny, how much are you weighing these days? Like, how much were you weighing then? Were you like 220 pounds?
I was probably 215 when I got to the show.
215. His arms are the size of my legs. And they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a tug of war. You versus Benny. I'm like, okay, great. And then it was going to be Benny's partner, Jill, versus my partner, Brittany. And then if it happened to split, then we would go to the teams. Well, Benny and I are against each other. I'm like, all right, I'm going to at least try to tire this guy out because like, I gotta tire him out. So if you remember right, they had the opportunity to get some gloves, and they gave us these gloves. I think they went to Home Depot, and I got rid of I had these Under Armour like football gloves, were tacky, and for some reason I made the bad decision to go with the Home Depot lawn gloves. Big mistake. When they said go, I think the tug of war lasted about 3 seconds. Maybe that's too much. It was very, very quick. And I always remember I was so ticked because I'm like, I just look like an absolute just weakling on national TV. Like, and people are gonna think I'm weak, but I the ropes, slipping through my hands, and it's gonna sound like a weak excuse. Like, hey, I'm like, Benny, can we have like a best of 3? And they wouldn't let us have a best of 3 because I wanted to put my other gloves on, and I was so fired up and ticked off. But Benny beat me in tug of war by like within like I'm gonna guess like in a second.
But you won the one that counted. You came back, you had some redemption. You won the one that counted. It's all right.
Oh man, that was an epic experience, guys. Fortunately, they did not show that on national TV because I think it was so embarrassing that it would have driven ratings way down on that. But we then came back and won, and we had that kettlebell pyramid challenge. Which I'm like, okay, great. I got to go against Benny in this this pyramid challenge. Bottom line is this: we had an amazing time. Spoiler alert: Benny and Jill ended up winning the competition, and amazing, close to $500,000. And let me tell you, for me, like you, Benny, it was never about the money. It was about the opportunity to change lives. And although that was only season 1, I wish we had more seasons. I thank you for the man that you were then and the man that you are now, because who you are is how you appeared on TV and vice versa, man. So it was awesome
Thank you,
to
brother.
work with you.
Thank
there.
you.
What would be
Thank
one
you.
of your top lessons you took out of Strong?
I would say just I mean, trust myself and trust my abilities that God have given me. You know, I mean, like God puts you like in great places at the right time for a reason. And so just trust yourself and trust like where God's put you. I would say that was like the main thing, because I'm not supposed to be on national TV. I'm not supposed to be in those things, but just like trusting the door that God opened for me. And I mean, just sprint through it, man. So I'd say that was probably the main lesson I learned there, because I had never envisioned myself being on TV or doing those kind of things, doing like a reality show or so. Just really trusting God.
Yeah. No, great point. As a matter of fact, later on this year, 2020, I'll be coming out with a book called Get Your Mind Right. And I share a story about competing against Coach Wylie in that you haven't heard before. So I'll hold that off right now. But Benny, I know the same motivation that you showed and demonstrated on Strong, you do now at the University of Oklahoma. And I want to talk about OU and all that you've done, because Coach Lincoln Riley certainly has created a championship team. But I know, as well as you know, that championship football starts in the weight room. And I know he's made a lot of great hires. And I'll go on the record and say none more important and better than Coach Bennie Wylie. What's one of the best things that you do as the director of football performance at OU?
Like strangely, it's probably not what you think. It's really to like lead and like mentor these young men. And I mean, I'm talking about not just being fast, not being strong, but being a better man than when you walked in the door. And I tell all the parents when they walk in and we're doing all the recruiting and those kind of things, that it's my job to take care of your son, and it's my job to make sure he leaves here better than he walked in the door. And like sometimes that's tough love and sometimes that's love, but I mean, it's always love. And just, I mean, honestly, like making sure these guys like walk out of the door better. And it's what you say, like day in and day out, impact. Like what kind of impact am I going to make on these young men's lives? And like what kind of impact am I going to let them have on my life? And
how do you do that? How do you do that?
It is about that relationship. Just like every single member that walks into FQ10, I mean, it's about that relationship. Like I see it like all the time with what you do. People love the place, but they also love you, and they love what you built, and they trust you. And so just having these bonds and these like relationships and these conversations with our players, with our athletes, and just building that bond and that trust over time. So there might be a day that they don't exactly know what we're doing, but they trust me, and they're going to run through a wall for us. And so I think that's that's the cool part, is that it's just it's trust, it's relationships, it's everything we do like in our daily life.
How much of that magic happens outside the weight room? So obviously, as the strength and conditioning coach for football, you spend a lot of time in the weight room and on the track doing all the speed work and on the field. But how much of that impact is created with a conversation in the cafeteria or in chapel or wherever it may be? Is it 10%, 20%, 50%? Like, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I would say at least half, I mean, like at least 50%, because when you're on the track and you're training, you're in the throes of it, I mean, if you're like in the weight room, you're grinding. I mean, there's not much conversation. So I would say for my juniors and my seniors that know me, I can say a lot with a look. Just like your patrons that have been there forever, I mean, like you give them a look, and I mean, that's a whole conversation, But I would say, like you have to make time just to walk over and eat breakfast with the guys, if they're in the dining hall. Like you've got to walk in the locker room and just sit in the guy's locker with them and just talk, have the conversation. So I would say a lot of those are at the smoothie station, I mean, these guys over making their shakes after the workout, you go talk about, I mean, your home life, your family. Like I invite the guys over to my home, and they get to see Jen and the kids and just be around us and see me at home, because I'm a lot different dude at home than I am here. I mean, I don't really talk at home. I'm a pretty quiet guy. Like I'm an introvert, but here there's no choice. I mean, there's no choice for how I have to be at work, but at home, like they get to see me serve my family. I mean, be dad, be the husband, like all those kind of things. So I would say, it's at least 50-50, but it could be a little more.
So when your daughter's on the basketball court or your sons are swinging a baseball bat, you're not out there screaming, "You gotta go! You gotta go!"
I am the dad that says like nothing. I'm in the corner. I'm all the way back. That's me. Like I let their coaches coach them, and I just get to be dad.
Yeah. Well, I know at OU you have the opportunity to work with some amazing young men, and of all levels. You have 3, 4, 5-star recruits, and you have folks that walk on. Do you treat those players any differently based on their pedigree and where they come from?
Like I do my very best to treat number 1 through number 120 like exactly the same, because like no different than anybody that walks there in the doors like a Fitness Quest 10. Yep. Like their goals are so important to them that it doesn't matter that you train like NFL guys, train major league guys, you train, pro hockey players. Their goals are super important, but like no different than every like mom and dad that like walk in the door, like their goals are important. So just through time, and we've had great like non-scholarship guys. I don't even call them walk-ons because I think they're just guys that are waiting to get a scholarship,
That's
so
right.
they're non-scholarly guys. And so, like go earn your scholarship. So we push those guys just as hard because every member of this football team has a role, and it's important that you are your very best at that role. It doesn't matter if you're the scout team, like O-lineman, then like we need you to be the very best at what you do. So I've got to give you value. I've got to train you. I've got to work with you. I've got to spend time with you. If I expect you to like in turn, give me your best, like every single day. If I treat you kind of like crap a little bit and throw you on the side, and now I expect you to do all this stuff, it's just not a even swap. So just give them their very best, just like I would the starter.
Benny, if you were talking to a young athlete today, not just at OU, but someone who desires greatness, maybe they're in high school, maybe they're even in middle school, or maybe they're in college, but they're not the starter, they don't have a scholarship, but they really have the desire to be great. What would be just one nugget maybe of wisdom that you would share with them?
Oh man, it would be hard to give them one, but I would say that the hardest thing to do in life is to be consistent. I don't care if it's in like working out. I don't care if it's going to church. I don't care if it's a dad, if it's a husband. Just being consistent and doing the same things every single time that you walk in. So for a young athlete, just to be consistent. Show up in the weight room, in your high school weight room, ready to grind. Not Monday, not Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then week 2. Are you going to be the same consistent dude that was there, that was excited week 1? Of course you're excited week 1. Crap, you better be excited week 1. But are you the same way week 7? Are you excited? Are you grinding? I'm not going to say it's going to be easy every time, but being like consistent with like what you're doing and like how you're going about your business. So I would just tell the young athlete just to be consistent. Like I tell that young lady, show up on the court, show up like in the dirt, wherever you are, show up and just be consistent.
Amen. Oh, I love that. And are you a believer as a coach in focusing on strengthening your strengths or focusing on your weaknesses?
Yes, both. I would say you of course have to work on your weaknesses. You have to, but if you don't continue to build your strengths and continue to pour into, because to me, those are things that God gave you. Your strengths are like God-given, those are the things. Just like you, God gave you a very specific knack of getting the very best out of people. And you can pull it out, man. It's unbelievable because you pulled it out of me, and so, but if you don't continue to pour into that and get better at it and read more books and go to more seminars and talk to more people, and I know you put a pretty good circle of people around you that you like lean into. So if you didn't do that, then you're not going to continue to get better. And so now your strength isn't your strength. Now your strength is a weakness. So now you got two things that you're working on that you've got to build up. So I would say both.
Man, I don't know about you all right now. I'm like ready to stand up and start doing jumping jacks and push-ups. Right? Just listen to Coach Wylie right now. I'm fired up. And if you're working out listening to this podcast, I know right now your heart rate's already high. Y'all are lifting more weight than you normally lift. And you're like, all right, I'm taking this to epic portions today on that. So Coach is dropping some awesome wisdom here. Let's talk a little bit in the weight room. You got to get your athletes stronger. What are some of your top lifts that you must do to make an athlete better?
Sure. Like I'm as old school as you are. And I say old school, had a good friend like Bo Scandival. He dropped a little nugget of the 4 like strength coaches that were in the college football playoffs. And all 4 of us are a little bit older dudes. I'm not going to say we're old, but the older wisdom. So I say old school. I mean, I squat, I clean, I bench, I run fast. I mean that, and it's almost that simple. And then you put those things on top of just a lot of love and just attention to detail, and you do those things, and you come out with a pretty good product. But there's a lot of new school stuff that people are throwing out there that, like you and I did in 1995.
I like that. You squat, you clean, you bench, you run fast, and you do it consistent. And the results are going to be there. There it is. How about speed? If one of your athletes comes to you and says, "Hey, coach, I need to get faster." In addition to those lifts, would there be anything else that you would recommend or have that athlete do to get faster?
Oh, coach, you know this. I mean, there's so much that goes into speed work. It is proper fueling. Like, did you fuel the right way before you came to this training session? Are you going to fuel the right way after you leave the training session? Are you going to do all the things like to rest and recover? Are you going to get your sleep? Like, I'm a low sleep guy, but I mean, your sleep has to be, it has to be done. And so you've got to recover.
Let's talk about this sleep thing, because you know what? Thinking back to Strong, did you even sleep? I mean, it'd be 4:00 in the morning. We're done filming, and you're up there like you're in the Bible, you're reading. I'm like, go to sleep. Turn your lights off over there, would you? I mean, do you sleep?
I don't sleep a lot. I don't
How
sleep a lot.
What's a lot? Tell me how much. Do you like 4 hours, 5 hours?
I mean, I'm good with 4. If I can get 4, I'm great. Now, just over the last 2 years, since Strong 2.5 years, I've bumped that up to 5. So now I get 5 hours of sleep. But I've just never, my entire life, I've never really just needed a lot of sleep. But
okay, so you're abnormal. Go ahead. You're abnormal.
For most young athletes, I mean, they have to sleep and recover. Even for parents, I mean, for a mom and dad, I mean, like, you better get your 8 hours of sleep and just let your body recover, because you're not going to be your best self if you don't have that done. I mean, we've got people here that have just gotten into the sleep studies and those kind of things. And I mean, that's a whole different ballpark, man, of just with the sleep apnea and all those things. I mean, just seeing what a good quality night of sleep can do for you.
And I want to talk a little bit more about your high performance habits in just a few minutes. But before we go there, if I was to come to Norman and talk to a handful of the athletes who you train, and I said, tell me about Coach Wylie, what would they probably say? What would be like one word or a short phrase? What would they probably say?
Oh man, there's actually no telling.
Besides crazy.
But like I would say they would say I'm all in, because I'm just like you. Like, if we're in here, like we're in here. If we're training, I'm gonna train with you. If we're running, I'm gonna run with you. If you need me to show up at like 10 o'clock at night because you want to run the stadiums, and I'm going to show up with you at 10 o'clock. So I would like to think they'd say all in, because we are the people that see them, at their high, at their low, at their middle. Like, we see the behind the scenes things. And just like you see all your pro athletes, and you see all the grind and all the work. And I mean, like, everybody sees like Drew Brees' like successes on the field, but they don't know how hard that dude works and how he competes. So, I mean, like, I would like to say that like they would say that I was all in.
I would agree with that. I think they would say that. Besides intense, yet loving. You have that balance between very intense, but also they know you care. And I think all great coaches truly care about their people, right? They always say they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And you are someone who truly, genuinely cares. And I know this because I see some of your social media. I'm watching Instagram, and it's like 125 degrees in the summer, and you're out in a sand pit with two of your athletes at 12 noon throwing medicine balls, competing against them, and you're doing these crazy things. I'm like, man, if he's doing that, I can do that. And to me, I'm serious,
Right,
because that's
right.
what great coaches do. You talk about iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. Benny, that's what you and I are always believers in, like who you hang out with, who you surround yourself with. I see you doing that. I'm like, hey, Benny's doing that. Let's go. We're going to the beach. We're going to go to the big beach out here in the Pacific, and we're going to go do some beach work. But folks, as coaches talking here, remember who you surround yourself with, who you train with, all of what you hear, you listen to. These are all habits that you actually create that will allow you to ultimately reach your utmost potential. And Coach Wylie is a living example of that. And if you don't follow him, because you'll see it. You'll see what he does, Monday through Sunday, literally, and his habits that have allowed him to rise to the ranks of being one of the top strength coaches in the world and leading men in way more than just football. So, Benny, I just can't thank you enough for all that you're doing, man. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying today's episode with Coach Bennie Wylie. I sure am enjoying speaking and connecting with Coach Wylie again. And speaking of consistency, what it takes to be excellent in all that you do, what are the habits that you're being consistent with? I want to give a word to one of my sponsors right now that I've been very consistent in taking for the last decade of my life. It's called carnosine beta-alanine. Carnosine beta-alanine is going to help produce more strength, endurance, power, and of course, focus. There's 0 banned substances in carnosine beta-alanine, and it's safe to take. So the bottom line is this: if you're looking to amp up your results, you're looking to get the edge in your performance, take carnosine beta-alanine as part of your program and be consistent with it. Where do you find it? Go to carnosine.com. Carnosine.com, upper right-hand column, you're going to look at Find It. Hit Find It and go get it. Get the edge. Get carnosine.
Thank you, brother. Love it.
Hey, I want to talk high performance and habits, because in the 6+ years I've known you, you really dialed into habits, and you talked about consistency, and it's easy to hear that. But if you're listening today and you're working out or you're traveling, what are some of the habits that you have created for yourself that you would say, hey, these habits have allowed me a certain level of success in my life? What would be a few of those best habits?
I would say, for one, the training. Like, I train with my people, and it's kind of been able to keep me, in peak health and shape and all those kind of things. But I mean, like, it's allowed me to help so many more people. Because if you're willing to do it with someone, I mean, they'll train hard. I mean, like, they'll get after it. So I would say that habit of like training with my athletes, and just kind of hopping in, just being willing to train. I would say spiritually, like every day I read every day, like in Proverbs. So if it's the 9th, then I read the 9th, and that's been probably the most consistent thing that I've done with my faith.
I do the same thing. I'm a Proverbs guy. It's easy. It's like it's just wisdom.
I mean, like, it's full of wisdom, and it's crazy that like wisdom is a she. That's what it says, wisdom, like in Proverbs, which my wife would agree, and I'm sure your wife would agree. And so, I mean, like, those are two things. As far as like nutrition, like, I'm a meal timing guy and kind of always has been. I try and eat every 3 hours, and I try and fuel like every 3 hours. So I'm not really like a macros guy. I just fuel often. And so, like, those 3 things I think have been just over the years, like, the most consistent things that I've done.
What's your favorite Proverbs verse?
I've got several.
Mine's 27:17. Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. I would say probably like the horse is made ready for the day of battle, but like victory rests in the Lord. So I kind of like that, just to think about. I mean, I can do all the training for my team that I want. I can put everything I want into them, but it's still, I mean, it still comes down to God, and he's got to, put blessing on it. So.
Right. Right. As far as your nutrition, you talked about some of the things. If you are, let's say, a mom or a dad, or you're a fitness enthusiast or weekend warrior listening in and you're fired up, and you want to improve your health, your fitness, your wellness, what would be a few things that you would say are important for those folks to do to change their life?
The easiest, and I mean, it's crazy, but water.
Mm-hmm.
Water. And there's so many empty calories in soda, in orange juice, in, I mean, all the different things that we drink. And so I would say the easiest thing that I talk to my athletes about, and just my mom and my dads that I train like in my gym in Abilene, is don't take anything out. First, let's put in water. So don't worry about the things that you shouldn't eat. Let's start putting in that water, because your body sometimes can't tell the difference if it's hungry, if it's thirsty. And so just that water, just like I got my big thing of water, just stand on it.
Look at that. We're brothers. Cheers.
Cheers. So I would say that's probably the thing that I would tell that mom and that dad, like right now, is just add in water. So
you and both Robert Yang just had him on the podcast, and he talked about water. You've talked about sleep. How important do you feel is mindset when it comes to shifting and changing one's life? Let's say someone wants to change their habits. You and I have adopted a lifestyle where our habits are intact. What would be the mindset you would share with someone that says, I need to change my life? How do you instill that consistency that you talk about? What's that mindset?
Sure. And I mean, that goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's just a circle of influence. I mean, like if you don't have it yourself, you have to put yourself like around other people that are doing it. And that's why like group training is so like effective,
Yep.
Yep. It is so hard to change yourself like without others, even as a model, even you seeing someone do it every day. Because I guarantee there's somebody like a Fitness Quest 10 that is like watching Jules like train over in the corner, and they're saying, man, you know what, one day like I'm gonna be like her, and she has no idea that they're even watching her. But I mean, so I think just the people and kind of the places that you put yourself in for that new person that's trying to figure it out, because you don't know it all, and you don't know even what you don't know. So I mean, go to a good place. I mean, put yourself around good people, and just just drink it up,
Yep.
Just absorb it.
Yeah. Bennie, as far as your routines, I'm a big, not only morning routine guy, but also nighttime routine. Could you share one or two things that you do in the evening before you go to bed, the last hour or so, and also your morning routine? And now, I don't know what time you get up, but what's one or two things about your evening and morning routine that you could share that would be of benefit for our listeners today?
I would say the thing that's the most consistent for me, like in the morning, is that on my way out of the door, and this is the craziest thing, I've never told anybody this, but like I tell everyone in my house that I love them with sign language. So every door, like I go and I tell them that I love them, and I mean, they're asleep. It's 4:00 in the morning. It's 3:30 in the morning when I'm leaving the house. And so every day, that's kind of that's my why. That's my purpose. I mean, I'm going to go work hard because I love every one of you in this house. And so, it's dark, you know what I mean? It's me and the dog, we're up, but I mean, like, everybody else is asleep. So that's kind of my morning thing that just kind of, it's that mindset, just like you talk about, that's how I get my mind right,
Yeah.
and it's every morning.
And that's 3:30, 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, because like we've done this a long time. There's days where you just don't feel like doing it. Okay. But like feelings have like nothing to do with my kids eating. They don't care if I don't feel good today. Like they want me to go to work, and they want to know that they've got a safe place to come home to. Feelings have nothing to do with like my wife and her having safety and like security in me working. So like my feelings have very little to do with me like walking out of that door and me going to work. So that's just my little like reminder to myself that, that's one of the number one reasons that I do it. And I would say in the evening.
Well, I just question on that. If you don't feel like doing it, how would you suggest overcoming the quote feeling. I feel like having a donut. I feel like eating this. I don't feel like working out. How do you switch that to actually make the choice and decision to do what you're supposed to do, or that you need to do?
Right. And I would say it's your feelings like versus your why. So like facts over feelings. And so that's what I'm like our D coordinator says here, I mean, like the fact is like I'm trying to lose weight. So me like wanting a donut, feelings versus facts. So me feeling not, like a little tired. Well, the fact is that like my family counts on me. And so that's kind of a physical thing for me. You could put a rubber band on your wrist and you could pop the rubber band. That could be your, just that physical act. So for me, it's a physical act that I sign to like all the doors of my kids and my wife. And that's my physical like response to like the feeling versus the fact.
And before you go to your evening routine habit, when you do that sign, that's not the Texas Longhorn sign, is it?
Oh, absolutely not.
I was just making sure.
There's a thumb in there.
I was making sure you're not doing the Longhorn sign instead of the "I love you" sign to your kids, because
no, that would be this way. That's the Longhorn sign. There you go.
Funny story. Luke, my son, he actually, when we were at a recent vacation, I need to send it to you. Took a picture for you with the Longhorn sign down, and
I love it.
I'll send it over to you. That's awesome. Evening routine. What's one or two things?
Probably the most consistent thing I do is get in the steam room. Like I know, like you're great sauna guy. And so the steam room for me, that's my last thing I do before I walk out of the building here. And that's kind of my like reset. Like it just kind of releases my endorphins to start to recover, to start to heal. Like I ice in there sometimes too in the steam. But that's my leave everything at work, leave all your work at work. And as you get in your car, like everything that you gave everyone at work all day, all the high energy, all the juice, all the love, all the praise, now go take that to your family. And give your family the juice and the love and the praise, so that it just helps me kind of separate the day from work to home.
That's right. But you told me a story when we were on Strong about when you were an intern with the Dallas Cowboys. You were in the weight room, and I don't remember if it was Troy Aikman or Michael Irvin, but you were in there. What was that conversation about? Because I know you've been to a lot of places, you've paid your dues, and there's a lot of young coaches, a lot of young entrepreneurs listening in that they may look at you, who you are today, and forget the path that you've traveled. It goes back a few years, but do you remember that conversation?
I'm trying to think if it was with Troy. I trained Troy for 6 months before he said a word to me. Didn't speak one word to me, just kind of watched me train him. And then after that, he was outstanding. Just wanted to see if I was a dude or not. If it was Irving, we sat in the steam room a lot at the end of the day. And he gave me so many like nuggets and just words of wisdom. So I'm not sure which one it was and which one.
To me, what I remember, it was you were showing up every day, and they eventually wanted you to be their coach because you showed up every day and showed up with your A game. And to me, that was
Emmett.
Emmett. Oh, that was Emmett.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
every day at 5:30 he was on time every day. That was his time, his routine. A great creature habit, also like great routine. That's why he was so successful. On the nose, 5:30 every day, like that door would open and he'd walk in, and I was there too. So at that time, Joe Jurassic, my boss, he let me train Emmett and said, "Hey, that's your guy," And so, yeah, Emmett was probably one of the more consistent dudes I've ever been around in my whole coaching career.
Well, again, back to consistency. You were doing that. He saw that. And then you ended up coaching these guys to some unbelievable years in their heyday back in the 90s and obviously 2000s as well. Bennie, you talked to me on camera on Strong about your story growing up. How did that upbringing help you become the man you are today? Because I remember, by the way, in high school, you played like football, band, you sold hot dogs at halftime. Like, you did everything. Like Just talk about that, because
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand the man you are today is because of man, your path growing up.
Right, I was very blessed to be around some good men and some good women like in my town that loved me, because my like home life wasn't great. I mean, like I've moved on. I mean, people have had worse than I have, and so I don't think my story is like unique. That I had some abuse in my life, all those kind of things, but like you can like grow from it and you can move on from it, or you can let it bring you down. And so to me, the people in my life and my circle of influence, then before I even put my own circle around me, like these people like put themselves around me. And so that's I mean, like my youth director, I mean, that's my scoutmaster, like I'm an Eagle Scout, that's my band director. I was a band captain. I mean, that's my football coach. I was a football captain. I mean, all the teachers in the school, like I was like on the student council. I mean, like I did all these things, but and that's God too. But putting so many people like around me that I couldn't fail, even though I had so much like turmoil going on at home. I was in this cocoon of just, greatness. Think about the leadership and all those things that were being put into me without me even really having to ask for it. I was put in these roles and put around these people. So I would say just that circle of influence was so key at a young age.
Folks, were any of you an Eagle Scout, the band director, and the captain of your team? That's amazing. And I don't want you to skimp over it, because there's people who are listening today who are either going through tough times at home or are products from that. Didn't you tell me that didn't you like sleep on couches at like your friends' homes in high school and your coaches?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Well, it was even worse than that. I moved out when I was 15 years old. And so from 15 through graduation, like paid my own like school clothes. Bought my own school clothes, all that kind of stuff. Lived behind like my scoutmaster's house. He had this little kind of like 1-bedroom, like efficiency. So I paid rent there. Went to work at Sonic like every day. Worked at Sonic for 4 years. So that's why I don't eat Sonic today, because I ate lunch and dinner there for 4 years.
But you did all that and worked at Sonic?
Yes, sir. It was I didn't know any different, and so I would say to those people that are going through things, like I just knew that God had something better for me. And I knew if I kept moving forward that I wouldn't be in the same place that I was, and you can use it as a crutch. You can use it as like something to grow from. Like my dad was, very abusive. Yeah, I don't even want to go down that road, but also like forgive my dad, because he's already passed away. It's been almost 15 years. And we kind of reconciled there at the end, probably the last 2 years before he passed away. But I don't blame him. That's all he knew. He was sick. He was an alcoholic. You can't help that disease. He didn't have a father. He didn't have a role model. So if like God can love me and like forgive me for all the crap that I do every single day, then like, why can't I forgive him, and like move on. So that was kind of my, like, who are you? Like, what right do you have to hold that against that man when like God loves you every single day and you screw up way more than that, but he still loves you the same. And a big slap in the face to me. And so, I can't be that mad, because I'm in his eyes, I'm exactly the same, if not worse.
Isn't it amazing that you're now in a place where you're getting to be such an amazing mentor to so many young men, and in some ways probably be their father figure, where you can impart your wisdom now that you didn't have as a young man. It's unbelievable. What a blessing, huh? So if someone's listening in, they're 5 years old, they're 15 years old, they're in high school, they're living on a couch of a friend, or they're a father or mom, what would you tell them if they're facing adversity today, similar to what you went through with abuse? Maybe it's alcoholism, drugs, neglect, poverty. What would be some things that you would just say to just, if you were on a soapbox for 30 seconds to motivate the heck out of their mind, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there's three things. Like, you've got to get physical. I mean, that's my release. I mean, that was why I got into training. I mean, everyone thinks that I was this good athlete, and that's why I started lifting. And I was a strong kid. I was a fast kid. Like, I lifted because I was going to be strong enough to actually like protect my mother. I mean, that's why I started working out.
That's right.
I mean, it had nothing to do with football or baseball or basketball or track. I mean, like, I lifted because I was going to protect my mom. And so I would tell those people, I mean, find an outlet, and it's usually something physical where they can at least have this like release and at least feel better, even if it's for an hour. You know, like, you go to the gym, you feel better for an hour, man. I mean, that's better than like not having that. And I would say find your local church, and it doesn't have to be a church building. I mean, find somebody, man, that can share just some love with you, you know? And then, I mean, find a book or, I mean, find an article. I mean, find something on YouTube, find something to boost your mind and put positive thoughts in there, because if you don't put them in, man, they're not going to come out. And so I would just say those three things:
physical, church, and get your mind right.
Get your mind right. No doubt.
You know, that makes me think, when are you coming out with your book?
Oh, geez. If I could write as well as you, it would already be done.
Well, Benny, I listened to you, and brother, I want to thank you, because you bring out the best in me. You bring out the best in a lot of people. And you hear me talk about all the time, everyone's got a life worth telling a story about. What's your story? I hope that someday you share your entire story, because it's worthy of a book. That's for darn sure. And I know you're far from being done, but even up to this point, it truly is amazing what you're doing, what you've done. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do to impact so many people, man.
Thank you, brother. I feel the same about you, man. And again, I'll say this again, like, the best part of like Strong to me was, I mean, you know, just for me to gain a brother, you know what I mean? Like, I gained a brother, and I mean, lifelong brother, dude that I can look to, that is my mentor. Like, I look up to you and see all the things that you do, and not just like all the success that people see, but I see what you do with your kids. I see, I mean, what you do with your wife. I mean, I see how these things are just kind of bled in everything you do and kind of who you are. And so those are the things that I think are awesome, you know, or the cool things, you know, that we post. I mean, yeah, squat, bench, all that, but I mean, you being there with your family, man, I mean, there's just nothing like it. So just kind of hats off to you, brother. Love you.
Oh, I love you too, man. I appreciate those words. And with this question, impact, it's what drives me. I know it drives you. To me, impact is all about legacy. What do you want your legacy to be, Benny?
I would say with my kids and my wife, like, I want them to just pass that on, pass on, just to work hard and be nice to people. That's kind of my mantra. Just work hard and be nice to people. And if they are left in a place where they're successful, where they're moving on, they're doing great things after I'm long gone, you know, that's what I want to see, is that my family has gotten, you know, just the best out of me, you know, like the best parts, because there's a lot of bad parts, but I want them to have gotten the best out of me. And I would say, like, with my athletes and with anyone that I've ever trained, man, like, I just want them to pass it on, man. Just know that it's all about hard work. And, you know, like, are you willing to work harder than the next person and the next person? So just like every athlete, you know, every mom, every dad, every officer that I've ever trained, I want them just to be able to, you know, just kind of pass on that work.
Mm-hmm. Benny, if someone wants to follow you, learn more about you, where's the best place they can follow you on social media?
Instagram, and I'm at B Wylie Strong. That's BWYLIE Strong. And so I post a lot about OU on there, but also throw some family stuff in there and some workout tips and all those kind of things.
Folks, if you want to get fired up, you need to follow Benny. Follow him at B Wylie Strong. I mean, I'm telling you what, he's posting in the weight room all the time. He's posting on the sidelines with his kids, and you get a really genuine feel of who this man is. And I watch that stuff, and that fires me up, man. I'm like, all right, I got to go see what Benny's doing. And I see you squatting 500 pounds. I'm like, well, I might squat today, but I'm not going to squat 500 pounds. But let me tell you what, man, that's what it's all about, is getting your mind right, getting out there and hustling and training hard and motivating and inspiring other people to be their absolute best. I know you do a phenomenal job at that. And I just want to thank you for all that you do, Benny. Truly is an honor to be a friend of yours and to work with you and that. So thanks for being here today.
Love it, man. Thanks for having me. And I will just throw this in there, man. If you want to get to know somebody, just go spend time with them. And that's how I honestly got to know you, even though we were, crammed together for 10 weeks, just to walk like in the Fitness Quest 10. And you opened the doors for me, man. Like, you let me bring out athletes and train out there. I had Michael Crabtree out there for a couple years in a row, but to watch how your staff, how your members, how they respond to you, that's how you know who you are. Not by what you tell me, not by what you show me, but I'm watching how everyone responds to you. And it was I learned more about you in those 2 years, which honestly, I never told you this, but I watched how you treated people and how they treated you and how they responded to you. And so if you want to know somebody, go to their home, spend some time with them, be around them, and watch how their family and how everyone around them interacts. So, you got a great deal going there, man. And I just couldn't be more proud of you.
Oh, great wisdom from one of the world's best coaches, Bennie Wylie. Show up, spend time with people, and that sometimes takes some sacrifice. It means getting out and traveling to a place, visiting them, emailing them, calling them, DMing them, whatever. But nowadays, it's so much easier to connect with people than ever before. It does take effort. So, you can follow people on Instagram. You can follow Benny. You can follow myself. But ultimately, you want to show up and you want to see what makes people tick. And that's why when I had the opportunity to work with Benny on Strong years ago, he got the best out of me. And we were competing against each other. But we were also friends and colleagues. And most importantly, we share the title of coach. And that's a very noble title and one that we both take great honor in. So Coach Wylie, thank you for being here today. Thank you for what you do. Hugs to your family, and keep inspiring those young men to be impact players, man. I appreciate all that you do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on, man.
Peace. Folks, who is fired up right now? I'm not even joking. Right now, I'm going to go get my second workout of the day in. I got one early this morning, and after listening to Benny and that episode, I am going to get another workout in, because that was one of the best conversations I've had in a long time, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. Can you do me a favor? If you enjoyed that episode and you know it's going to make a difference in someone's life, can you please share this episode? You can share it on Facebook. You can share it on Instagram. You can take a snapshot of the actual cover and share it in your Instagram stories. If you have a newsletter or email, share the story. Coach Bennie Wylie is one of the best coaches in the world. And when you talk about a soulful man, a man full of spirit, Bennie Wylie is an unbelievable man. He's an anomaly in so many ways. And when I had the opportunity to work on Strong with him, you could see why we became very, very close friends. And to have him on the Todd Durkin Impact Show podcast was an absolute blessing today. You can listen to that 2 or 3 times. And if you have kids, make sure your kids listen to that episode as well, because we always want to be delivering great content for them as well. Folks, have an incredible day. And if you have not worked out yet, you can bet your bottom dollar that your next workout is going to be on fire after listening to Coach Wylie. Have an incredible day. Remember, as always, train hard, eat right, live inspired, and go create impact.